For this blank, I decided to use red heart, maple, and walnut. And as an accent, I'll be using white vulcanized hardboard. Now I know the first question is going to be, what is vulcanized hardboard and where did you get it? It's really just kind of a piece of cardboard, and where I got this is off of eBay. I simply searched vulcanized hardboard and I found a place that sells it by the sheet. I believe it was $1.78 a sheet plus shipping. I bought each of these sheets individually, and they do combine shipping, so I did not have to pay shipping individually for each piece. I started this project by cutting all of my materials to the proper width. What I thought was red heart turned out to be Paduke. It became obvious when I cut it, and it is cut to 3/16 of an inch wide. The maple is cut to 1/4 inch, and I cut 2 pieces of walnut at 1/4 inch each. The vulcanized hardboard, I basically used the walnut blank and a razor blade and cut 4 strips to the width of the walnut. I'm going to take my Paduke blank and I'm going to glue a piece of the vulcanized hardboard to each side of the blank. I'll glue a piece of the vulcanized hardboard to one side of my maple blank, and I'll hang on to the third piece for later on in the project. While my glue up's dry, let me show you a couple of the tools I'm using to make these blanks. First off, I'm using this thin rip table saw jig. The way this works is you put it into the miter slot of your table saw and you adjust it away from your blade to the thickness of blank that you want. In my case, 3/16 of an inch or 1/4 inch away. So if this was your blade, let's say that's 1/4 inch away from the blade. As you run the stock through the blade, you run it against the wheel and it will cut a perfect 1/4 inch thick blank. The second thing that I'm using is a piece of tempered glass. Whether I'm doing a CA glue up or in this case a Titebond 2 glue up, this is amazing because if any glue gets on the glass, I can just take a razor blade, scrape it right off, and I'm ready to do my next glue up. With the fiberboard glued to both sides of my Paduke blank, I'm going to take all 3 of these blanks over to the bandsaw. We'll clamp them together, and then we're going to cut a 2-inch section. With the pieces cut to 2 inches, we now want to sandwich them together. When you're sandwiching your blanks together, make sure that both end pieces are square and make sure that you have at least one side where all of the pieces are flat. This is why the glass comes in handy. You'll notice the Paduke is a little bit wider than the walnut. The walnut is 3/4 of an inch. We'll simply take this to the sander and we'll touch it up, and the entire blank will be 3/4 of an inch when we're finished. I've clamped my sled to my disc sander. I've set the backstop to 30 degrees, and I've also verified that I am perfectly at a 90-degree angle from table to disc. Now what I want to do is I want to sand this blank. I want to put a 30-degree angle on each side that ends right in the center of this blank. The next piece to this blank is we're going to want to have a chevron, a Paduke chevron. So what we need to do is take this piece of Paduke and sand it to a 30-degree angle. We'll do the same with this piece, and then we should be able to mate them up at the top of the blank. With these 2 pieces sanded to 30-degree angles, we can now glue them to the top of our blank. While the glue dries on my blank, I've gone ahead and cut down 2 pieces of the maple that have the vulcanized fiberboard glued to it. I'm going to go ahead and do the same exact thing to these. I'm going to put 30-degree angles on them so that they meet perfectly, because these will be the next pieces that will glue to the top of our blank. These are ready for glue up as soon as the blank is tacked. You'll notice that I sanded them so that the fiberboard was on the outside. If you remember, the Paduke has this fiberboard on both sides, so it will provide the fiberboard between it and the maple. I'm also going to prepare 2 walnut blanks, and these will cap off the top of the pin when finished. All of my 30-degree glue ups have been made. The glue is still tacky, so it's going to take a while to dry. Once it is dry, we'll come back and we will cut these side wings off. Then we will square the top of this blank at 90 degrees to the side of the blank. In the meantime, we're going to start making a piece for the bottom. You might remember that I cut an extra piece of fiberboard at the beginning of the project. I did that because I wanted to cut a little square that I can glue to the end of my walnut blank. Now that the glue has had sufficient time to dry, we're over at the bandsaw. We want to go ahead and cut the wings off of both sides of this. Then we'll take it to the sanding disc and square everything up. With the blank cut to the proper length, we can now glue this final piece and the blank will be complete. I'll let this blank completely dry before we try to drill it, but you can see that the tube should fit perfectly within that blank. My blank is completely finished. You can see that it is the perfect length for the tube. I used Titebond 2 to glue this blank up. I'm going to let it sit overnight to make sure that the Titebond fully cures before I attempt to drill it, tube it, and turn it. Here's a quick peek at the finished pin. I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I had a great time figuring out how to make this style blank and then turning around and making it for you. You know, those of you who follow me on Instagram know that this is the second successful attempt I've had with one of these. The first time around, I refused a video. I decided, you know what, I'm going to figure this out, and I posted lots of photos over on Instagram, but they were kind of teaser photos. It turned out great, so then that told me I'm ready to go ahead and do a video. And I had an awesome time making the video. I love the blank. There are a few tweaks. You know, it's not perfect yet. I know that, but it's close enough, and you get the picture. And it's just a matter of making half a dozen or so of them, and then you'll have it down pat and be able to make repeatable, awesome blanks every single time. I would like to thank you for joining me in the shop tonight. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon, and have a great evening, everybody.